Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are when you see this video. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. It is August 11th, 2025. Why did Trump choose Alaska for this meeting with Putin? Well, I have an article here by a PhD man who has ideas of what he thinks the reason is. I'm going to share it with you now. Why Trump wants Putin in Alaska and not anywhere else. The choice of America's northern frontier is as much about politics as it is about geography. This is by Alexander Bobrov, PhD in history and head of diplomatic studies at the Institute for Strategic Research and Forecasts. At RUDN University. Okay. The choice of Alaska as the venue for the August 15, 2025 bilateral summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin carries a rare blend of symbolism. It reaches deep into the past, reflects the current geopolitical balance, and hints at the contours of future U.S.-Russia relations. From the standpoint of historical memory, there is hardly another place in the United States that so clearly embodies the spirit of neighborliness and mutually beneficial cooperation lost during the Cold War. From 1737 until 1867, this vast, sparsely populated land was known as Russian America, a semi-exclave of the Russian Empire, separated from its Eurasian heartland, yet sharing a border with another state. Tsar Alexander II's decision to sell Alaska to the United States for $7.2 million was one of the most debated diplomatic transactions of the 19th century. In St. Petersburg, it was clear, if left unattended, Alaska would likely fall into the hands of Russia's main rival at the time, the British Empire. Handing it over to Washington was not an act of weakness, but a calculated investment in future relations with a nation whose specific ambitions did not yet collide with Russia's. In the 20th century, this symbolic connection gained new meaning. During World War II, the city of Fairbanks, with a population of just 30,000, became a major hub in the Lend-Lease program, a massive U.S. military aid effort that supplied the Soviet Union with aircraft, equipment, and materials. Alaska's airfields served as a key route for delivering American planes to the Eastern Front. Even today, Alaska remains the most Russian of U.S. states, home to Old Believers, descendants of 19th century settlers seeking religious freedom with functioning Orthodox churches, and place names like Nikolaevsk, Vonessensk, and lower Russian lakes, linked by the Russian River. But the choice of Alaska is more than a nod to history. It is also a political calculation. Trump clearly has no intention of sharing the spotlight with intermediaries such as Erdogan, President of Turkey, or Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. That's MBS, I think. It isn't. It's the president of the United Arab Emirates. And that's the one that Putin had suggested to do that at the UAE. And one of the most influential figures in Middle Eastern politics. Both men have played high-profile roles as international brokers, but their involvement would inevitably shift the tone and priorities of the summit. Trump has chosen the most geographically remote state in the Union, thousands of miles from any Euro-Atlantic capital, to underline his distance from both from his Democratic opponents at home and from NATO allies who, acting in Kiev's interests, will seek to undermine any potential breakthroughs. There is also a practical side. Alaska's low population density makes it easier for security services to minimize the risk of terrorist attacks or staged provocations, while sidestepping the legal complications posed by the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant. In 2002, the United States withdrew its signature from the Rome Statute, and it does not recognize the ICC's jurisdiction on its soil. There is another crucial dimension. Alaska is America's only truly Arctic region. In a world where the Trump administration has been exerting pressure on Canada and Greenland to bring them under firmer U.S. influence, the High North is becoming a strategic theater. Russia and the United States have overlapping interests here, from developing the Northern Sea Route, which partly runs through the Bering Strait, to tapping offshore oil and gas reserves. The Lomonosov Ridge, an underwater formation in the Arctic Ocean, claimed by Russia as a natural extension of its continental shelf, is a case in point. Joint Arctic projects could turn the region into one of the most prosperous in the world, but under a different scenario, it could just as easily become a stage for nuclear weapons tests and air defense drills. Ukraine will loom large over the summit agenda. Western media outlets have already floated the possibility of territorial swaps, for example, the withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from Donetsk People's Republic in exchange for Russian concessions in the Sumy, Kharkov, Dnipropetrovsk, I can't even pronounce that, and Nikolaev regions. Even Western analysts have called such a deal a diplomatic victory for Moscow, noting that the unoccupied territory Russia would gain would be 4 times the size of the areas it might cede. Alaska is a fitting place for such discussions. Its own history is a vivid reminder that territorial ownership is not an immutable historical geographic constant, but a political and diplomatic variable shaped by the agreements of great powers in specific historical moments. The summit in Alaska is more than just a meeting between 2 leaders. It is a return to the logic of direct dialogue without intermediaries, a reminder of historic ties, and a test of whether Moscow and Washington are willing to work together where their interests not only intersect, but could align. Alaska's story began as Russian, continued as American, and now has the chance to become a shared chapter if both sides choose to see it as an opportunity rather than a threat. Well, isn't that a very optimistic, article? I mean, I do see the symbolism. I see how he would think of it. I can see all the points he made. It really does sound great. As I said, very optimistic, very, there's promise there. The problem is, will this actually, first off, take place? And if it does, what really will happen? I know I've heard several times from analysts that know Trump, that he's different behind the scenes than he is out in the cameras and the limelight. He tends to be more cordial in person. He tends to listen more. And this would give Putin his chance to talk with Trump, just he and him, and just get out from his perspective what's going on and why what his plans are, or whatever, what he wants to do. And even though they've mentioned this several times, the Russians have said exactly what they want to do and what this operation means in Ukraine. This will just be a nice, more personal chat. So that's the optimistic side of all this, if this actually takes place. Now, as you know, the EU is freaking out about this. They don't want the idea of Trump and Putin meeting behind closed doors by themselves is too scary to them. They worry that Vladimir Putin will convince Trump to just concede or give in or something and give more concessions to Russia. Also, there is what Larry Johnson is saying about this meeting and what could be going on behind closed doors or being told to Trump that's important. And I'm going to share that as well. And that's this little piece here. that was earlier in the day. So I'm going to play this little portion.
I wonder, what does Trump think he's going to get out of this other than the whole world watching them for a few hours?
Judging from what he said and what has been presented, part of this is based on Cy Hirsch's latest piece, where he's talking to someone in the intelligence community. And so I have to assume that if this is coming from what the intelligence community is telling Cy Hirsch, they're telling Donald Trump the same thing. And that is, Trump and his team believe that this is a territorial dispute. This is an argument between Russia and Ukraine over territory, that Russia just somehow needs the territory. That's not it at all, not even close. It has nothing to do with territory. It has
Larry, that is the real estate developer mentality of the president and of Mr. Witkoff.
Yeah, and he thinks, we can cut a deal where you give up this piece and take that. That's not it. This is about NATO expansion to the east. And while Witkoff is in Moscow trying to cajole Putin into a meeting, and at the same time as that's happening, Trump is preparing to welcome the presidents of leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan to Washington, signing the deal. And the reports are within that deal, kept secret, is the intent to invite them and to make them members of NATO. The goal of surrounding Russia, the United States has not backed away from that. The United States is not interested in peaceful coexistence with Russia. And anybody that thinks that that's the case has just not been paying attention to the U.S. actions. I don't judge the words, I judge the actions.
So has Trump totally abandoned MAGA and embraced the neocons?
On this issue, yes.
Okay, so he makes a good point there. That there is a lot of talk about the territory, and it's all about you swap this piece of this piece of land in Ukraine, and we'll swap that with Russia, and Ukraine will take this and all that, and that's not really what it's about. It's about NATO encroachment that has been going on for 20, 30 years, as we all know, and so. If this is what's going to be the discussion, nothing's going to be done. A lot of people believe nothing's going to happen in this meeting. It's not going to make any difference. Everything's going to go back to the same thing. It's kind of sad because wouldn't it be nice if it was actually what that man's article said? Wouldn't it be nice if we were working with Russia, with the Arctic, and doing all these things, these joint projects and getting along with other countries? Wouldn't that be nice? Unfortunately, that's not what the prophecies say. The prophecies are going the way of the World War, unfortunately, and Larry Johnson is kind of reiterating that this is what's going on, and something needs to work out. Otherwise, we're going to World War III. He said that as well, and so. Yes, well, maybe at some time that could happen with Russia and America, but don't see that happening now. However, wouldn't that be neat if something like that did happen? What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that this can happen? Prophecies can change through a lot of prayer and repentance and all that, but unfortunately, that's for the little things happening around the main deal. It can push back events if enough people are repentant and humbling themselves and asking for God's mercy. That could push back the events, but it's not going to take away the war. In any case, tell me what you think about that article. I thought it was pretty interesting. And as I said, it has an optimistic view. That's kind of nice. We all need optimism at times, in this day and age. Thanks so much for watching, for following my channel, and until next time.